Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing Breaches of the Week. And before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people that sent me messages, linked me, tagged me, whatever that was in these. It always helps me out, so thank you very much to Jason Dance, Neville Goodalls, Chris Fallon, and David Walker. Guys, I always appreciate your help. And with that, let's dive right in. And we're going to be starting with Advantage Capital Funding and Argus Capital Funding. And this sounds familiar to me, but I went back and looked, and I don't actually think I did this in the last month or so. But these two organizations jointly developed an app, and here we go. This app, which is no longer available for download, is storing basically its data on an Amazon Web Services S3 bucket that apparently didn't have any form of encryption, authentication, or credentials. Basically, this meant that over 500,000 documents were left vulnerable on this unprotected server, which included credit reports, bank statements, contracts, legal documents, driver's license copies, purchase orders, receipts, tax returns, social security information, and transaction reports. This is 425 gigabytes of exposed data. That's a very serious issue. I'm sure they'll be held accountable. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company called N-Court. Now, this is a payment processor used by local government to collect court fines and utility bill payments from residents across Arkansas and Oklahoma. And they mistakenly exposed, basically on their website, a cache of data representing years of transactions. Now, a cybersecurity researcher, Ashat Ogasyan, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, found a cache of database files in a public and unprotected web directory on this website of N-Court, which basically runs two websites, CourtPay and UtilityPay, both .orgs. Now, the directory contained backup database files storing at least 3 years worth of transactions, 79,000 transaction records on CourtPay.org and 64,000 records on UtilityPay.org. We're talking about names, postal addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, etc. Now, each record also contained the payment card type and as well as the last 4 digits of the card number and expiration date. So hopefully the full cards weren't exposed, but here we go. Moving on, we're going to head on over to Italy, and then we're going to be talking about Monte di Paschi, and again, I apologize to my Italian viewers for butchering your language. This is one of Italy's largest banks. Now, attackers accessed mailboxes of some of their employees and sent emails, phishing emails, to clients. Now, according to a notice, this attack took place on March 30th when some messages with voicemail attachments were sent, obviously infected. At the time, it is not clear if the attackers stole any of the company data, and the bank did not provide technical details on the attack, and here we are. If I have any updates, I'll let you know. Moving on, we're talking about Hammersmith Medicines Research. Now, this is a research company that is basically on standby to perform live trials of coronavirus vaccines, and they started emailing data breach notifications after having their data stolen and published in a ransomware attack. Now, this attack occurred apparently on March 14th when the Maze ransomware operators stole data hosted on their HMR's network, and then basically they began to encrypt the computers. After the ransom was not paid, the Maze operators published some of the stolen data on their news site, quote unquote, on March 21st to further extort HMR into making this payment. At that time, HMR stated they could not afford the ransom demand and wouldn't pay it even if they could. And to quote Malcolm Boyce, basically he's the manager and clinical director of HMR, told Computer Weekly, and I quote, "We have no intention of paying. I would rather go out of business than pay a ransom to these people." So, Malcolm, you're pretty cool in my book. This absolutely sucks, and apparently there are no honor among thieves, because this is one of the groups that said they would not go after anything coronavirus-related critical infrastructure, and here we are. This is also one of the reasons why the COVID-19 Cyber Threat Coalition exists, is to stop jerks like this. Moving on, we are actually going to be keeping in Italy, and we're going to be talking about a website called email.it. Email it. It's kind of cool. Now, they're an email provider, obviously, and the data of more than 600,000 email.it users is currently being sold on the dark web. Now, according to the service provider in a statement to ZDNet this past Monday, and I quote, "Unfortunately, we must confirm that we have suffered a hacker attack." Now, the email IT hack came to light this past Sunday, meaning a week ago, so apparently just after my video of last week, when the hackers went on Twitter to promote a website on the dark web where they were selling the company information. The hackers are going by the name NN or No Name Hacking Group, and they claim the actual intrusion took place more than 2 years ago in January 18th. So there you go. If you use email.it, heads up to you, you have been exposed. Moving on, we're going to talk about a company called Maropost. Now, apparently they are an email delivery and marketing firm. A database owned by them was reportedly found open and unsecured, exposing about 95 million customer records. Researchers at Cyber News, initially found the database in early February, noting it contained 19.2 million unique email addresses and marketing logs containing the relevant metadata for these emails, such as the exact date and time the emails were sent, who sent them, and to who, etc., etc., etc. Now, this data resided on a Google Cloud server and was locked down on April 1st. Cyber News claimed it tried multiple times to basically notify Maropost of this: email, social media, phoning them, etc. And Cyber News said that no PII, personally identifiable information, was included in this database, but pointed out the email addresses and metadata could be used for phishing and other types of scams. Moving on, let's talk about a company called Keyring. Now, you may have this app. This basically lets users store digital copies of their loyalty cards, create shopping lists, receive weekly deals, sign up for more things, etc., etc., etc. They had not one, but 5 misconfigured Amazon Web Service S3 buckets revealing private data of Keyring users, and this was discovered by VPN Mentor in January. So instead of setting the S3 buckets, storing the files to private, Keyring developers misconfigured the buckets, which I think is probably a nice way to put it for this article, allowing 44 million images to be accessed by any individual with a browser. Now, the first misconfigured bucket exposed a database that included scans of retail, club, and loyalty card memberships, government IDs, gift cards, full credit card details, including CVV numbers, that little 3-digit code, medical insurance cards, and even medical marijuana IDs. The data leak also showed CSV, comma-separated values files containing membership details, and lists of prominent North American retailers such as Foot Locker, Mate, Walmart, and others that expose personal identifiable information on their customers, including full names, email addresses, zip codes, membership ID numbers, and dates of birth. Sounds like a fun identity scam that you can run just with this information. The remaining 4 buckets contained additional sensitive information about the user, such as home addresses, device type, IP addresses, and encrypted passwords. Holy crap. Basically anything that they were doing, that you were doing with Keyring, and I'm sure there's a ton of you out there, you got exposed hard. I would seriously give that organization a second look. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company called Scuf Gaming. This is SCUF Gaming. They are a gamepad manufacturer, and they had a customer database of more than 1.1 million records exposed. Now, this was accessible on the internet without a password or any other form of authentication. You could just get right into it, and by the time the database was found, it had already contained a note apparently left by criminals demanding a ransom. Now, here's the interesting part about this one, is that the database was exposed for less than 48 hours, according to Comparitech's investigation. They're the ones that found this, but that was long enough for somebody to just find it, access it, download it, and then leave a ransom note. And this basically underscores something that I try to tell everybody, whether I'm sitting in the audience, talking to a client, whatever that is that these kinds of scans for vulnerability never stop. The firewall in my house is being scanned multiple times every day just to see if I've got something open that somebody can exploit. If you've got a database out there, you need to lock it down. And we'll be going through that again in this video because there are worse than Scuf Gaming, but heads up, Scuf gamers. Moving on, let's talk about the country of Iran. Now, a few weeks ago, I reported about a personal data breach of 42 million Iranians that was being sold on hacking forums in the dark web that included names, usernames, and phone numbers. Now, once again, thousands of Iranians once again have become a victim of yet another data breach. Now, This is selling the personal details of 45,000 Iranians on the dark web. According to the sample data that was seen by HackRead, it confirmed that basically they're selling 8.17 gigabytes of data with 45,221 files. Now, these files contain copies of Iranian national ID cards, birth certificates, passports, debit cards, etc. And now this information appears to have been collected from several separate websites used by Iranians, including nayazpardaz.ir, which is an online advertising platform, a utility platform, and also another website called rz24.com, which is a website that is owned by Farhad Exchange, which is known for buying and selling bitcoins and other currency in Iran. So heads up to you, Iran, you guys had yet another data breach. And not to be outdone, Pakistan is also the country of, in the news here, a data dump of 115 million Pakistani mobile numbers has shown up for sale on the dark web on April 10th. Now, the criminals behind this data are demanding 300 Bitcoin, roughly 2.1 million US dollars, for this data not to be released, and we'll see what Pakistan, or rather the mobile providers possibly in Pakistan, will do. Moving on, let's talk about the country of Malta. Apparently this week, countries are just disclosing massive hacks. A database containing 337,384 records of Maltese voters' personal information has been exposed, and this is according to a data breach monitor. The data includes names, addresses, ID card details, and phone numbers, and appears to be from the electoral register. Fortunately, is no longer accessible online, but here's the thing. In 2017, there were 341,000 registered voters in Malta, so this breach pretty much covers every single voter in the country. So if you're in Malta and you vote, odds are you've been exposed. Moving on, let's talk about the SFO airport. This is San Francisco International's airport. They disclosed this week that 2 of their websites had been hacked and basically led to the disclosure of users' login credentials for both of these sites. Now, these attacks apparently occurred in March, and the compromised sites were sfoconnect.com and sfoconstruction.com. And according to San Francisco International Airport, these are relatively low-trafficked websites. Not too many people are going to these. I guess they are adjuncts to their main site. And to quote, the attackers inserted malicious computer code on these websites to steal some users' login credentials, and this is the message that they had put out. Users possibly impacted by this attack include those accessing these websites from outside the airport network through Internet Explorer on a Windows-based personal device or a device not maintained by SFO. And this really underscores the point. If you're using Internet Explorer, it is time to get out of 1998. We have moved on, and there are a lot of other browsers out there that are significantly more secure. Even Microsoft says, get out of 1998. We have a new browser called Edge, that you can use, not to mention Chrome, Firefox, and the one I'm currently using right now, which is Brave, which is based on Chrome, but I think a lot more secure. So heads up, stop using Internet Explorer. And if you've been to any SFO website for that airport, heads up, you might have been hit. Moving on, let's talk about Elasticsearch databases. Just Elasticsearch databases in general, not one specific company, because for the past 2 weeks, an attacker has been breaking into Elasticsearch servers that have been left open on the internet without any kind of credentials or authentication, and has been attempting to wipe their content, and here's where it gets interesting, while also leaving the name of a cybersecurity firm behind, trying to basically point the finger at them. Now, according to security researcher John Wethington, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, John, one of the people who saw this campaign unfolding and who aided ZDNet in the report, and this is where I'm pulling this from, the first intrusions began around March 21st. Now, the attack appears to be carried out with the help of an automated script that scans the internet for these open Elasticsearch databases that are left unprotected. Then it connects and attempts to wipe their content, and then it creates a new empty index called nightlionSecurity.com, which is the name of the cybersecurity firm that they are targeting. So this really underscores 2 different things that we need here. 1, secure your databases, people. Encrypt them, make sure they've got authentication, and if you think they do, double check them. Basically audit yourself. This is beyond important. And when I've got clients running in the cloud, aside from vulnerability scans and penetration tests, we are always checking settings to make sure things like encryption on the back end are enabled, so stuff like this doesn't happen. The other thing the second point here I want to make is, I wonder what the hell Nightlion Security did to piss this guy off. because he is literally blowing through everything and pointing the finger at them. And I think the world is understanding that Nightline Security is not doing this. That's essentially been confirmed. But man, they must have really done something or exposed something for this guy, for this guy to be going after them with such passion. I don't know, maybe former business partner? You tell me. Moving on. We're going to end up here once again and finally in the Bay Area of San Francisco. At least 2 Bay Area school districts have suffered cybersecurity breaches, basically in the wake of them rushing to move remotely, basically teach from home, e-learning, this kind of thing. So in Oakland and Berkeley, student privacy has been compromised, and in one case, an unknown adult male decided to expose himself on a Zoom call to the teenagers as well as the teacher. In Berkeley, a man somehow gained access to Zoom, exposed himself, and eventually the teacher was able to eject this person from the session. The district then immediately banned all video conferencing with students until the security could be ensured. Obviously, Zoom's been in the news for a while. We'll get to that. In Oakland, the district suffered more widespread breach after administrators, inadvertently publicly posted hundreds of access codes and passwords used by teachers and students to log into online classrooms and video conferences. Hey, do you need to join 5th period math class at X high school? Here's the code. Go to the website, grab it. The whole world could do that. Now, these codes basically allowed anybody with a Gmail account to join Google Classroom sites that were set up by the teachers, within the districts and all of that. And it also gave them access to students' full names, as well as comments that they had posted in that shared workspace for Google Classroom. Documents also included time, access codes, and password for Zoom video conferences with teachers and students. So Google Classroom and Zoom were all exposed by the administrators who literally published how to get into everything. So this underscores, I think, a couple of things, and this is why I want to end with this one, is that one, we need to train our educators on how to enable safe meetings. This is one of the most important things as we are all rushing to spin up the Zooms of the world, and Zoom has been compromised, in many different ways. We, as a cybersecurity outfit, cannot recommend using Zoom, not for the user interface stuff. I mean, we always see vulnerabilities like that, and Zoom has been very good at patching that. It's all the back-end stuff and access from a foreign country where that trust has been broken, and Zoom is working as fast as they can to try to reestablish that trust, but until they do, it's not something that I can recommend. But Zoom on the public side, on the interface side, gives you a lot of options, including enabling multi-factor authentication for your logins, allowing you to set your own passwords and run some semblance of encryption. Although I'm not going to get into that, it's better than no encryption at all, even though I think it's compromised for Zoom. So we need to be training our people, not just spin up a Zoom thing and point everybody here. We need to do this. And I think it really underscores, and this is my second point, how the education system here in the United States, and honestly, they overwhelmingly have not taken cybersecurity and privacy very seriously. And I will give you an example from the school district in my area. Now, my local school district basically had a teacher that was posting pictures of the students, and we are talking about grade school kids, so under the age of 10, etc., posting them on Twitter publicly. Now, the default policy, as I investigated this, for sharing within the school district, by default opts you in, and in other words, you're opted in. So you sign all the paperwork to have, Junior go to the school district, and boom, he or she is instantly opted in to any kind of social media, any kind of pictures and all of that, when it really should be the reverse. And so if you want your kid not to be in these pictures, you have to write the school district every year and basically say, I don't want Junior in any pictures. I opt out of this for my own privacy. And here's the thing, we live in a social media world. People my age are having kids and they're in school, whether it's kindergarten to high school or whatever that is, but we are living in an era where we are sharing online, we are doing all of these things, and so when we are looking for these institutions, we're not really understanding just how deep this can go. We're not understanding that when you've got a 7-year-old kid that's being put out on Twitter with all of his or her classmates on there, we don't stop to think about that. We just do that. We want to share, and then we tell all the parents, go look at the Twitter feed. Well, yes, but so can all the predators. It's not locked down. And these are things I think we really need to understand as a society. especially when we are looking at things like protecting our children and safeguarding our children. And this is why I think educators really need to have that education. We've got great teachers. I grew up with great teachers. I have friends that are teachers that I'm sure that are great. I have nothing against them at all, but they're just not educated in this. And we need to do this. So if you're a teacher and you're listening to this or you're watching this, make sure you are enabling these passwords. Make sure that you have an approved, let's say, email list that you are sending out, let's say, that code to, and not just publishing it somewhere. Make sure that you are validating it. A lot of meeting platforms also give you the ability after you take attendance. So let's say you have 5 people in a meeting plus yourself. Once everybody's there, a lot of them give you the ability to lock the meeting so nobody else can join it without, let's say, a request. And so these are the things that we're talking about here. And as our social media platforms and our video conferencing platforms race to lock themselves down and be aware of this new increased explosion of things, we also have to make sure that our teachers are being educated on now how to correctly use these products in a secure manner. And so with that, I will leave it there, and that is your breaches of the week, and there were a ton this week, and why not? Everybody's focused on the coronavirus. It's the perfect time to tell the world you had a data breach because nobody's watching. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.